that.
So I have no idea, I've only been
Hi.
to one thing
I'd like to
here.
call this meeting to order.
Let's do
Permits
it.
for my
Let's do it.
building.
Chair will note that we're
Hello.
starting
Hi, I'm
10
I'm
minutes
Lisa.
late.
I wrote down 9,
Yeah.
7:09.
All right, let's take a look at these, everybody has their agenda. Here we are with all our stuff. Sorry, I just came from work, so I have to sort of
Yes.
clear my desktop.
Switch gears.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, back to page 1. Call to order, roll call. Everybody here?
Yep.
Does anybody need an introduction? Did you all do it before I came?
No, I think
No,
we'll
no,
do it,
we
yeah.
have new members, so.
Yeah, so I really want to do that.
Let's do that in announcements. How about that?
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Approval of minutes. Everybody look at the December meeting minutes.
I move to approve.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, approve those minutes. Public comment. Yay!
Don't leave us, don't leave us.
I really come back.
Hi, I'm Jen Daly. I'm a citizen of Albany. So I wanted to come here because I've gotten a couple emails and I just wanted to come and talk in person to you all because that's how I roll. So I want to say first and foremost, thank you, and to my colleagues I've worked with on this committee. You are the very best of people, and me leaving the committee has nothing to do with any of you. I very much enjoy working with you, and new people welcome. Always great to have new faces at the Arts Committee. Okay, first of all, true confessions. I did not know in November that my term with the Arts Committee was ending. I never applied for the Arts Committee. I was kind of drafted, and then I was reappointed without asking. So it was a little bit, it came up and I didn't know what was going to happen. So when I found out in the beginning of December that my term was ending, I had mentioned to staff that, well, I don't know, because I'm not a parent in the Albany schools anymore, and I was the school board appointee to this committee. Staff had initially thought I could maybe serve until someone new was appointed. That turned out not to be true. And so then I had to decide if I wanted to sort of pitch the school board to reappoint me and see if they would do it, or if I didn't want to do that. I did talk to a member of the school board. They do have some ideas about new people coming in. And, I think when we're in this room, it doesn't matter who appointed us. We all kind of do the same work. But I really did take that role as being a liaison really seriously. I was always connecting with and talking to and engaged with people in that community because I was a part of it. And I'm not a part of it now. So I decided that the best thing would be if the school board truly does have someone on this committee who is a part of that community. That might seem kind of idealistic to some people. I'm super idealistic when it comes to arts and education, and so that's what I decided to do. And that's by far and away the biggest and really only part of this decision that really matters. Two more things. One is great news for me that I got a contract organizing Poetry Out Loud for the state of California. It's a huge gig. It came up in December. The event happens in March. I'm gonna run home from this meeting and email 250 more people about this event. So I'm super, super busy with that. I'm in Sacramento a lot, often on Mondays. So that is a factor as well. If you do, I see it's on your agenda to consider the Poet Laureate. If you do reappoint the Poet Laureate, tell her to call me because Albany's never been a part of this thing and it's a really cool event. Involves everything from hundreds and hundreds of teachers across the state and kids across the state to the governor, so it's cool. But that makes me super busy, and including on some Mondays. The final thing I want to say is not a reason for me leaving this committee, and the main reason why I wanted to do all this in person instead of in writing. The last thing I did do for as a member of the Arts Committee was go talk to the City Council about the rewriting of the Arts Committee mandate, because the mandate was rewritten without anybody on this committee being consulted and without it being discussed. The new mandate references a document I don't actually think exists, the Arts Master Plan, which I mentioned to them, but they kept it in there anyway. Oh, I gotta finish. As I said to the City Council, I don't see myself as much in a mandate that focuses so exclusively on visual art. That's not why I'm leaving the Arts Committee, but I wanted to say it to you because I think it's an important thing. Okay, now the hook is coming, I gotta go.
Thank you,
But
Jen.
I want to go back and say one more time, you are all fantastic people, and I have enjoyed working with you very much, and mostly this is about wanting the school community to have a real liaison on this board, and I am trying to cheerlead and help them get one, so thanks a lot to all of you.
Thank you,
Thank
Jen.
you, Jen.
Thank you so much.
Great.
That's great news. Wow. We miss you.
See you at the poetry thing. That sounds great.
That sounds fantastic. Okay. Yeah. All right, announcements. We have new people.
Yeah, let's start there, right?
Yeah. So let's introduce ourselves. Brandon, you want to start?
Sure, my name is Brandon Schneider. I'm a project manager at UC Berkeley. Before that, I taught Berkeley City College and also UC Berkeley, mostly humanities courses. And I've been on the committee, I think, since late 2017.
Okay, I'm next. I'm Lisa Rose, and I'm brand new on the committee. I live in Albany, and I own a home and an art studio here. I'm a working artist. I am also a state of California credentialed art teacher, and I have an MFA and a BFA, and I'm a professor of art at St. Mary's College.
Nice. Hi, I'm Jenny Holland. I'm also Albany resident, as we all are. I'm a musician and a music educator, and I've been on the Arts Committee about the same time as you, 2017.
Hi, my name is Andrew Kellogg. I'm new to the city of Albany, moved from San Francisco with my family. I am a parent of a Albany middle school kid, and I also manage and co-founded an art space in South Berkeley.
I'm Peter Goodman. I've been on the Arts Committee since
Time began.
1745, I think. And I've lived in Albany since 1985, and I've got a small book publishing company on Solano Avenue.
I'm Cheryl Black. I've been on the art committee about 2 weeks after Peter, or about a year after Peter, actually.
1750.
Yes, 1750, exactly. I obviously live in Albany. I've lived in Albany for 35 years. I'm retired. I was a caterer.
And I'm Eva Phelan. I've met both of you and met with both of you, so thank you for your time. We're excited that you guys are here. Everyone modeled their microphone speaking very well. I'm the Senior Recreation Supervisor for the City of Albany and have been in this position for about almost 5 years. So, and the Arts Committee Liaison for just over a year. I was wondering, and
Yeah.
after we do Karen, I also wanted to know, maybe you can go down the line and say what subcommittees you're on too, for our new people too. What programs do you manage to? Who are you?
And I'm working with the Senior Center, the Albany Senior Center, and the Arts Committee,
Thanks, Karen.
As we go through the list again, maybe, does everybody know who appointed them to the committee or who sponsored our committee members?
Should be fresh in your mind.
Yeah,
right?
so let's say that. Go ahead, Brandon.
Okay. I was appointed by Councilmember Moss, and I've been part of the economic development, the Joint Arts Committee Economic Development Subcommittee.
It's an acronym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that I was appointed by Nick Pilch.
And you have yet to join any committees, but you will.
Right.
Yes. Right.
I was appointed I was a member at large, but now I'm appointed by the mayor, Mayor Nason, and I guess I'm really working hard on the sculpture loan committee. That's my thing.
I was also appointed by Nick Pilch.
You can't be.
I think maybe member at large, but I think Nick
Could have been
sent.
interviewed by Nick.
Maybe that was it.
I'm a member at large.
You're the member at large?
So then
Oh,
you're Nick.
Lisa's you're
So then you're Nick. Because the council, only one person.
Yeah.
Council person.
I was appointed by Michael Barnes, and I'm on
Every committee.
well, I work with a poet laureate. I spearhead the Fall into Haiku program. I think I'm also on the economic thing with Brandon, and have been working on rewriting the arts master plan. And I also do the postcards for the gallery.
Yes.
I was appointed by Peggy McQuaid, and I run the gallery.
Great.
All right. Any questions?
I have some staff announcements. Just the main one that you guys all should have received via email of reminder of the mandatory advisory body
Right.
and Brown Act training on February 25th.
Do
That's
we
a-
have to go
a
up and
Monday.
done it any number of times?
It says mandatory. It's a, like
Just asking.
it's a good refresher. So 6:30 to 8, and that will be here, and all the committees, all the staff liaison will be here as well. It'll be a fun
Very
party.
crowded.
I won't be in town, so
Right.
I'll get a video or something.
Something.
Okay.
Yes.
Had to leave the country, didn't
All right, are there any presentations tonight? I don't see any. Okay, let's, can we go to the discussion action items, discussion and action items? Let's go to item 6-1, the creek art. This is just to give you a little background. This is something that we've been trying to do for a while. We had a certain amount of money, and we were commissioned some artists after a review period, after a selection period, to make some creek art for the Albany Greenway Path, because our mandate from the city was to provide beautification to the Albany Greenway Path. So this was one of our things. We had a really cool project where the creeks that run under that path were going to be represented by bronze watermarks in the path, in the bike part of the path, and then some local flora and fauna. And then we had the people who were going to do it, and they were going to do a great job, and then we ran into difficulties. So, Eva, you and I talked about it. Can you talk us through, does everybody have the attachment?
And I
Greek-
pulled
the
it
Greek
up
art.
on the screen
Good
too.
idea.
That we can look at too. And sure, I kind of outlined it partially for my brain, but also for everyone else who most of us actually weren't here in April 4th, 2016. So hopefully you guys have all read through it, and I can kind of talk to the last year or so when I got involved. When I got involved, it had been a while since the ball had stopped rolling, essentially. So I picked it up and worked with the artist Frank Wing and Studio 3 and kind of started it going. But to be honest, there were red flags all along, mainly just really hard to get a hold of. He missed a meeting here to present when he was supposed to come. So it just kind of was like pulling teeth. But, he was an artist. I thought, you know what? It's not his forte to be on time. Let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. But the last straw, for me at least, was when we had talked with the Public Works Director here. It says on the November 27th date, the Public Works Director and the Transportation Manager, the artist, as well as myself, to really talk through the safety plan. Mark Hurley and Justin Freed were both very concerned with the lack of a plan for when the artist was actually going to do construction along the path. The artist said, I was out there for a few hours and there was only 2 bikers, and he said, I don't think it'll be a big deal. And so we really were trying to hone in on the fact that he needed to have a plan. Typically, when construction projects are done, Public Works requires the contractor to submit a safety plan. So it includes signage, maps of where they're going to direct traffic, and it's very detailed. Well, the artist doesn't have a contractor, and it's kind of this chicken or egg fight. He was saying he needed a contract before he would get the contractor, that no one would agree to do the work. And we said, we need a safety plan that's from a contractor before we can trust you to move forward with this project. And then we gave him the deadline of January 4th, and he wasn't able to meet that deadline. And then I got a phone call a week or 2 ago, and he said, oh, when is that due? And I said, well, it's due January 4th. And so he did submit something Friday or Thursday or Friday of last week. At this point, and I have not brought that to the Public Works Director or Transportation Manager, just in looking at it from after the discussion on November 27th, it still did not detail out the specifications that they were asking for. So at this point, staff is recommending not moving forward with the project. It just seems like from now the public works director and the transportation manager both have agreed that there's enough red flags that they're not certain that the work would be done safely and according to the plan. So that's kind of where we are. Let me know if you have any questions, and this is open for discussion as well. Yeah.
Ava, how much money, could you remind us, is at stake, and which fund would it go back into?
Yeah, good question. So the money part of it is that $7,500 came from the Art and Public Places Fund, and then that was going to be matched by the Measure WW Fund, and a little bit more into that. Obviously, the fund money would just go back into the fund, and the Measure WW money. I've asked some of the questions of what would happen, and there's a meeting in March, so we don't have that information exactly, whether that could be used for something else. It definitely would be used. It wouldn't go to waste. The Parks and Rec Commission has projects that they need help with, including beautification and modifications to Memorial Park. So that's an option as well. But as far as what else it could be used for, I don't have an answer at this point. So
I have a vague recollection that part of the deal we were trying to get this done was that we were going to lose this money. As the arts committee, we were going to lose this 70.
there was a rush to use
to
it, right?
use it.
And that deadline did get extended until, I believe, beginning of 2020. So
Oh, okay. So
10 months from now, a year from now.
They could use it for something else,
They could use it quickly, yeah, because they're already,
use
because
quickly.
it needs to be used for something.
it does, right,
That's what I
exactly.
remember.
It would not disappear, yeah.
But it wouldn't necessarily come back to the Arts Committee. It goes to Parks and Rec at large.
Right, right.
Half of that money, right?
Right, but that's the big question mark that I'll have to get back to the committee on, is whether or not, because it's been earmarked for creek art or along the greenway, if it could be used for anything else as well.
Well, as I recall, we all really liked the project. And there were
Absolutely.
some questions about the logistics and the materials and whatnot, but overall, we all liked it, and it was gonna be very public and a lot of traffic along that corridor. It's disappointing that it would fall apart for a simple reason that the artist is basically kind of an incompetent builder. Aren't there people who he could call upon to handle that side of it for him? That's not his forte, so
Yes, and this was
that's the only issue, is it not?
well, this was the disconnect, because I mean, I also didn't mention, I'm realizing too, that his $15,000 budget he came back to, and then now we're only doing 2 of the pieces instead
I
of 3 of
remember
the
that, yeah.
pieces, right?
That was,
But
Right.
we were agreed with that.
yeah,
Sure.
we're fine with that.
Sure. It just adds to the kind of overall picture. Yes, safety is number 1 for Public Works and Transportation Manager. So
And I don't have any problem with that. I'm just wondering why does the artist feel like he has to do this all himself?
yes,
And there
and
are
that's what we couldn't
So
get
many
to the
profession-
bottom of.
This can't be a very
It's not,
taxing,
doesn't strike me as
Yeah.
all that complicated. I'm with Peter, I don't quite understand why Public Works can't help him out here.
You mean they write the safety plan? Well,
Give him a safety plan, right, I mean,
yeah, maybe give it
maybe
to him and
give
say,
it to
this
him,
is what
this
you
is
have
what
to
you
do.
have to do. If he can do this, then we should be able to
well,
carry
and that,
on.
right, and that was pretty much spelled out in the conversation, and Mark Hurley sent him basically what he uses for all of their contractors as well. And so we kind of spoon fed it to him, but I'm willing to do, send it to the Public Works manager, transportation manager too, and kind of get their feedback on it. This is such a highly used path, and it would be closed for the after talking with the 2 other staff, it was determined that they're going to actually close the entire path because it just wasn't safe to go around the construction when it was happening. And so that's kind of where the traffic is really going to need to be rerouted on the street and everything like that.
That cement had to set for a particular period of time,
Yeah.
right?
And then they were okay with the plywood on top. That part was okay. It really just was the lack of a plan, essentially.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if it's like an alternate traffic plan, how could he possibly do that by himself without knowing what the city would, well, maybe you said
The
the city
city,
told
the
him,
city kind of spelled it out.
but
Yeah. Yeah, it's just,
I wish there was some way of someone with more confidence in that area could work with him to make a plan.
Ava, has he been told that he's risking the loss of the funds if he doesn't respond by date X or didn't respond by date Y?
he was told, no, he was not told specifically that if you don't meet this date that you will lose the contract, because obviously it has to come here too. And so he was given that date that this is, we were already delayed and he hadn't met the other deadline. So January 4th is when it was all due. So
Okay.
I just want to say, I think that we are disappointed as a group because we really liked his plan. We really liked his design. And there's one, the part that is really problematic, I don't think the part between Dartmouth and Solano and Marin is very problematic at all, because there is another path the entire way. But right at the edge of Albany, right at the Albany-Berkeley border, which is the first part of the installation, at the bridge at Cordonesis Creek, there is no other walk path. And there's no sidewalk on that part. Well, no, I'm taking it back. There is. You could totally reroute that really pretty easily. You could reroute it to Masonic Avenue. There is a full through sidewalk there.
and that's what was communicated.
Yeah, and that's
yeah.
all he would have to do
Right.
for like 2 days.
Right.
How
And
hard could that
going
be?
back maybe to kind of what you were addressing too is that Karen and I were just talking about the sculpture loan and installation and who's responsible for that and why it's the artist and not the city and just liability. So it really does fall on the artist to do in the sculpture loan, the installation and the transportation of the art piece just in case there was damage. And so I assume that this is the reason why the artist is responsible for the safety plan and making sure that there's correct signage and that bikes are rerouted along.
But in this
Masonic
case, it's a public thoroughfare. The sculptural loan program is adjacent to the
It's not
the
on the
path.
thoroughfare.
It might be public, but I mean, a public bikeway. I would agree. How can a private artist, contractor, etc., be responsible for
Rerouting traffic.
the safety plan? That's the city's responsibility.
Yeah.
Usually the contractor that they hired, because he has a contractor coming in to excavate, pour the concrete and whatnot, and they would be the ones.
But the city's ultimately going to have to prove that or not. The city's ultimately responsible for the safety of a public thoroughfare, I would think. So he maybe has to submit something, but it can't be his ultimate responsibility to have an accurate plan. That would seem illogical to me.
I wonder if the artist has a contractor already picked out where basically the contractor could come up with the plan and the
Right.
language and format that the city demands, knowing that if the job goes through as a result, that they're going to get the work.
Right. And that was our suggestion, but he said he couldn't have a contractor do that if they hadn't signed the contract to do it.
Probably didn't ask the contractor.
Maybe, yeah. And I think backing up a little bit with the Albany Loop, Public Works and Public Works and specifically learned a lot from the Albany Loop project
Yeah, we did.
of having an artist do the plan and the contract. Really, there were just a lot of unforeseen hiccups that could have been avoided. And so I think they're a little bit more protective too of this is actually even a bigger deal because the Albany Greenway is going to be closed, whereas the Albany Loop, I don't think they closed the pathway.
Right.
Yeah, just because it was
So
adjacent.
what's our timeline on making a call about this?
Well,
The city wants to abandon it, right?
Yeah.
that's our recommendation. That's the recommendation, but it's ultimately up to the committee. The funds are still there. At this point, I think there should be an action at tonight's meeting, one way or the other, just because WW money does have a timeline and we are planning for the next PAPP process? Jim?
Well, would something like saying, give us a plan within 21 days or the project is canceled? And the city will, either someone at the city will, agrees to give them an hour worth of instruction about how to draw up the plan or find a contractor who will do it on spec. Either way, it is his responsibility, and I'm not quarreling about that. But seems, since he didn't have the ultimatum before, now's the time to maybe give him one and extend it for 21 days. If it doesn't, I mean, we wouldn't lose anything by doing that, would we?
No. I think, in terms of this, I loved the project and I really want to see it happen. And I think as far as we were concerned, as committee and staff, that the ball was dropped. And that's why it went on so much longer than it should have. And I think we have a responsibility to that. Because it kind of got lost in the shuffle with changing of the guard and the liaison and all of that kind of stuff. And I think we should be responsible in that way to help facilitate this if we still feel that we want the project to continue. I know I do, and the sound of Peter and Jen and Brandon, we all do. So I think we need to get a little bit more flexibility here and kind of see what the city can do to help this guy along. Because, like you said, they're artists, a little on the flaky side, but they do beautiful work. And the drawings and the things that we saw were terrific and will add a great deal, and I would hate to see that money disappear into something else, since we have a project that's really lovely.
And if that's a consensus of the committee, what staff can do is bring that back, what was delivered to the director and the transportation manager for their feedback. And I can either move forward from there or bring it back to the committee in March too, if they are saying that it's not feasible and I can have more information for that. So if that would be okay.
Okay.
Do we need to vote?
Yes, I would say I don't think we need to make a motion, but
Do you need to okay that
All in.
plan?
I guess we would, how would we do that? This changed everything. Maybe we can just make a motion to continue the project and with the approval of the Public Works Director and the Transportation Manager.
Encouragement that they try and get this done.
I also think some
Encouragement.
form of deadline for the artist is important. I think it could be productive to say there's a lot of concerns, we want to help you, but you need to deliver by X. It sounds, I would suspect that'd be a strong motivational force. I think it'd be useful to have that formalized in some way. So I don't know what the exact dates would be or what we'd want to say, but something along those lines. We will help you do X, but you need to provide it by
Right, March 15th,
whatever the date is.
whatever, give a hard date.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion and we'll vote?
Let's think about how to say this, because there's two things we want to say. We want to say that we want the city to continue pursuing this, and we want to have a clear deadline. Are those the two things we want to say? Okay, I move that the city continue to pursue this project and that we give the artist a clear deadline for a safety plan.
And what would the deadline be?
And I,
And less so with the deadline, I think more is just with the approval of the Public Works Director and Transportation Manager.
we want
Or
to
the plan.
encourage them to do this.
But we want to tell them that it needs to happen by a certain date.
Well, no, I agree, we want to do that, but I also see that we want to encourage the city to really get on it.
Yeah.
To get on.
To offer the kind of support and see if they can get this moving again
To the artist.
to the artist.
Okay. Does someone want to take another stab? Continue to pursue the project.
Yes.
I have.
And support the artist as appropriate in the submission of a safety plan, and that said plan be submitted to the city by,
March.
this is where I don't know the.
Well, I don't know that we need a date. I mean, we can do 21 days or whatever it is too.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Sounds good.
Anybody want to second that?
Second.
Okay. How many in favor? Anybody opposed? Okay.
Did anyone abstain? Okay.
Sorry. Should have. Okay. So we're going to move on to item 6-2, the Public Arts Project Plan, affectionately known as the PAPP, and the work plan, known as the work plan. We're going to just, everybody take a look at this. This is the part, this is the part where I'm going to really miss Jen. Because this is the part that I don't really understand.
No one understands.
It's a,
Well, maybe Eva, the first thing we could do is request that you explain in clear English language using short
Yes.
words. What is the difference between the work plan and the public arts projects plan? How do the two relate to each other?
yes.
I'm so glad you asked.
Good.
That is tiny. I can blow this up. So to help the process, I thought it would be good just because I haven't done this before and several other people on the committee haven't done this before, but I took everything on the work plan and I can't bring both up at the same time. So if you want to just look at the work plan as well, you can do that. It's a front and back, and it has on one side it has the recent initiatives and accomplishment. And again, this work plan is for 2017 to 2019. We're working on the 2019-2021 work plan. But what it does is it lists all of the accomplishments of the committee. So it talks about the Poet Laureate and the Art Gallery and the Film Festival and yada, yada, yada. And then on the other side, it talks about basically what the plan is for the next 2 years. So policy review and initiatives. And this is what the committee at the time outlined as items that they want to address in the next 2 years. This work plan then goes to City Council for approval. I should also mention that the council strategic plan is mirrored, that's not the right word, but is directly tied to some of these. So seek collaboration with Economic Development Committee on the following projects. That is directly from this council strategic plan where they are encouraging collaboration with the Economic Development Committee. I'm not remembering what else was tied to the last one, but so that's a little bit on the work plan. It's basically a plan for what the committee would like to do in the next 2 years. The process I thought we could go through tonight is go through one by one, and I've drafted a couple columns of completed or pending, or maybe we can do in progress would be another good column, but to go through one by one. And I thought this was a good exercise to go through just to see how the committee was, what the committee was able to do, and maybe in that process think about, okay, maybe this one we didn't get to, so we want to continue it, or maybe this was too much and maybe we just need to parse it down to a more realistic list of initiatives. Any questions on that?
I have a quick question. If I've understood correctly, the PAPP is the only one that has city funding set aside, or
Correct.
some sort of funding set aside. Everything else on the work plan, it would need to generate funding somehow, some way to happen in most cases.
I think I understand what you're saying. Yes. So the PAPP is how funds from the public art fund are going to be spent.
Right.
Okay.
Art in Public Places Fund
Okay.
are going to be spent. So these projects were identified on the work plan, and then what the PAPP does, the Public Art Projects Plan, is identify exactly how much will be spent on each one. And I wasn't here, but I believe must have been the Parks and Recreation Commission must have come beforehand and said, you have, what is it, $22,500 of Measure WW that can be spent
Yeah,
too.
Shelley came.
Shelley came.
Shelley.
Presentation.
Yeah.
So for the sake of the new members, the PAPP specifies the projects that are paid for with this Public Arts, Art in Public Places Fund, which is paid for by new developments. Certain percentage of new developments gets paid in the fund. And that money accrues there, and then at a certain point, we decide to take some of it and use it for certain projects. And all those projects have to go through this rather extensive process of public debate and committee meetings. There's usually a request for proposals sent out to the community of artists. So those don't appear there without a lot of work ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Those were there, I think, because they were all, except for community projects, which were a separate category. Those had all been approved, right, through our approval process.
I believe so. And the Albany Greenway public art projects, the Creek Art and the Albany Loop, the Blue Albany Loop, which is over at Portland and Masonic, those were tied into the bigger project of the Albany Greenway Improvement Project. So Parks and Rec Commission had their projects and incorporated art in that. Yeah. So kind of back to tonight is really kind of reviewing what has been done, because all of this will go on the work plan that will eventually go to council. Both of these documents will eventually have to be approved by council, but going through the exercise of what has been done, and then if there's time, starting to think about the next work plan, the next 2 years of which of these projects, obviously the community center foyer, putting that on the next one, the poet laureate, are those programs that we want to continue, but also throughout the year, many other projects get mentioned as well. So homework for everyone is to really kind of think about those, of whether they have a budget attached to it or not, to put those on the work plan as well and bring them to the committee for discussion. So, without further ado, I thought we would go through one by one the Albany Greenway, and then I have, pending, I thought maybe I'll have in progress, makes more sense maybe. But for the Creek Art, we'll say in progress.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I'll center these. And the San Gabriel,
That's done.
that's done. Sculpture Loan,
In progress.
progress.
Yeah, we're doing.
It's moving forward.
Yes.
Thank you, Karen and Mark.
Community projects also
In progress.
moving forward
Progress,
and
yeah.
power. Fall into haiku, and that would be for the 2018 and 2019.
Yeah, so the
And-
problem we ran into there is that the city attorney doesn't think that the Art in Public Places Fund, as is currently written, can be used for a non-visual art thing like fall into haiku.
Oh, Jesus.
So
We,
as
And
part
this-
of a, how to deal with that is probably part of our coming work plan.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
Rewriting,
Right.
kind of rewriting the ordinance and
Exactly.
examining our master plan, et cetera.
Exactly.
But currently, like for this year, it's maybe doubtful that we can put it into the PAPP. We'd have to put it under the regular work plan. Does that, it could work that way, right?
It's on the work plan, but right, it wouldn't.
It couldn't be under the PAPP.
Right, exactly. And that's on the agenda too, that we can chat about some of the ideas. And moving down the list, so this was seek collaboration with Economic Development Committee on the following projects. And some of you may have more information on these than I do because they may have been predated me, but murals on Solano and San Pablo.
This in general, I think, Peter, correct me where I'm wrong. We had a couple meetings with the Economic Development Committee, and I think things stalled out. I was supposed to produce a draft document about murals and other art on Solano. I finally put together a draft of something this weekend, not in time for this meeting, but that might be something we can discuss at the next meeting if we keep this on the work plan. And I think with a general idea of maybe simplifying some of this from maybe specific items to just having more art broadly considered, music, visual, performance, whatever it is, on Solano and San Pablo. Keep it simple like that and try to come up with, simple and open with some type of document, straightforward, go to Economic Development Committee, see what they think, and go from there.
I think that's a really good idea, in the way that we identified the Albany Greenway and the margins, the outside perimeter of the city as ways we want to identify Solano Avenue and San Pablo as a place to put a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
But let's keep it pretty open.
Seems like there should be one more column, maybe. What would you?
You could put in progress. I mean, it's
Yeah.
far from coherent at this moment, but it's in
We
progress.
call it the Solano Avenue Development Project, the way we called it the Albany Greenway Development Project? Or is that already too nailing it down?
Maybe just Arts and Economic Development
Okay,
Project or something like that.
Okay.
And this one does come directly from the strategic plan. The strategic plan of the council has not been finalized. It's just a draft, but they want to see collaboration between the
Okay,
two. And at some of the meetings, nothing concrete was determined, but I like the way you phrased it too, is more open-ended and leaves room for flexibility. Yeah. All of these are complete, right?
So we have the live music on Solano and the identified space. We have started to build a relationship with some of the music providers. And Blueberry is opening a space, and those are things that are moving along. Not under the auspices of the city, but that we are in conversation with people about.
Sorry, but going back to the art gallery,
Yes.
that should be in progress on
I
the
was just
main,
about to say that.
on the
The
main
last
heading,
one?
right?
Yes, because it's ongoing.
Yeah.
It's ongoing, yeah,
There's
ongoing.
And those are
yeah.
the ones that are
Yeah,
done
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
this last year.
So under
but
that, on line 17 there, yeah.
We have a new exhibit that opened in January, and then
We can
we'll have
maybe
one
do-
again in April.
If I'm fancy, I can
The Poet
freeze
Laureate
paint.
should be ongoing, yeah?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We haven't gotten to it yet, though.
Yeah.
Ah, I did it. My Excel knowledge. Yes, so ongoing or in progress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And for the gallery also.
Yes, I did that one up here.
Great, sorry, missed
That's
it.
okay.
Nothing ever happened there, did it?
Where?
On the art on the bulb?
Nope,
Yeah.
I think
Well-
that's really Susan's
right,
project.
and she's gone.
Well, the action word is really consult. Consult with stakeholders, planners, and public on how art and the art activities can be integrated into the bulb.
Do we need a liaison? Like, does one of us need to
Did
be,
we have any meetings?
To
We had one
liaise.
meeting, didn't we? There was some point, I don't know if it was formal or not, but we don't have anything,
We don't have anything pending.
I mean, we're always available for consultation, but it's not something that we're pursuing
Actively.
actively.
Right. But, I mean, with Susan being on the committee and before she was on the committee, I think maybe she presented
Yeah, she
too,
presented.
so.
Sent it to us,
yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say nothing was done, but
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you can put it in progress, but
progress, or maybe there's an,
we don't have anything, as far as I know, we don't have anything specific that,
right, we do
no
not.
one's got any initiatives that they're pursuing.
No,
so maybe it's instead of in progress, there's an ongoing, does that make sense?
Or,
Or,
I,
I know, Cheryl, you're gonna say, no.
I'm fine, whatever.
You're good. You're
I'm good.
Maybe you could
Okay.
have a for discussion column to
Yeah,
Oh,
in
that's
conversation,
conversation.
yeah.
Huh. What's going on? Okay.
Great. The public art, are we there? Public art registry. This is something I did a bunch of work on about a couple years ago, and we thought we would ditch this,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
right? So let's ditch it.
Great.
Right? Ditched.
Ditch, that's the technical word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So so now we're at the film fest.
Yes.
Yeah, we are.
Does the arts committee have any formal role to play?
You have a liaison to the film festival.
Well, I am the
too.
liaison, but it's just me, and I don't know. I mean, is it really an arts committee thing? I guess is what I'm asking. Does it have to be? Because I could do what I'm doing, frankly, without being encumbered by the arts committee.
I actually, I was just gonna note, I actually have a film in the film festival
Oh,
this
great.
year.
I saw that. Yeah.
Right on, so yeah, keep the liaison.
You have a film in the
Yeah.
Yeah, right on.
Well,
You have to
I guess
recuse
what I'm
yourself.
asking, I mean, it's fine to keep it as it is. I'm just a little confused about what since the city has taken it over, does the city still want the arts committee to be, we had been a partner, I think?
Yeah,
Are we
we've
still a
been
partner?
support.
The city?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe.
We, the arts
Arts
committee.
committee?
We a
Are
partner?
are we listed on the brochure?
We're always, Peter's
The
always
city
telling
is,
us how
but-
it's going.
Yes.
Yeah,
think these
was
are
giving- I
probably-
was giving updates
Yeah, we're
every,
there with assistance
Yeah.
from the arts committee.
On the bottom here.
Hey, I helped at that sale. Just because I'm on the arts committee.
Arts
Yeah.
committee, there we
Well,
are.
all right, so,
So we are.
okay, so keep it on, it's fine, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, Lisa, you can join in on the
Yeah.
subcommittee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
What, am I supposed to do something?
yeah, yeah.
Actually, if you do, you probably won't get your film.
You don't have to do
Conflict of
anything.
interest.
I have to, I can't be, I can't.
Right, maybe actually
I
that's
do
what-
because I'm
Right.
an artist in the.
There you
Okay,
go,
well,
you're
just
an artist.
keep that in progress then.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Recuse
good.
yourself.
Yeah.
The Arts and Green Festival is gone.
It's gone.
So we'll
Right.
get rid of that.
What's our action word on that?
Gone.
We ditched it.
Citywide.
It's a very official.
That's ongoing, I
That's
guess.
ongoing.
Yep.
The local artist listing is gone.
Oh, did I miss that one? Oh,
Yeah,
no, no,
The
I
only
see.
thing we're gonna do is we're gonna.
This is, sorry, this one we said ongoing,
No,
correct?
sorry. Go on.
No, the increased visibility and awareness of the
Yeah,
art.
that's ongoing.
That's
Yeah.
ongoing.
And then, sorry, what were you saying, Jenny?
Update the local artist listing, that's gone.
Okay.
That's a gone thing.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion on these, just as we kind of look through? Can make it a little smaller, but then I think we can't read it.
Right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What was the local artist listing? What was
Oh, I'll
that?
tell you what that was. That's actually something that would be amazing if someone would take it on, but it's, the way I conceived of it was so broad. I wanted to do a census of all the professional and amateur artists living in Albany by every single possible category of arts engagement, and to prove that we have one of the most arts engaged per capita cities in the world. And then I thought, I'm not doing that. And so the other part of it was to sort of make it was sort of like the registry. It was going to be a site where you could go, if you wanted an artist, you could go to this place on the Arts Committee site, and there'd be a list of artists who were living in Albany who you could go to. But then I did a bunch of research onto how other cities handled this, and nobody did that. And I thought, okay, maybe we won't do that. We'll just acknowledge the artists whose work is currently on display in the city and has been on this display in the past, and develop that, that thing. Mostly it was like, it seemed like a very overwhelming kind of thing. Does anybody else remember it any differently? That's how I remember
Nope,
it.
that's how I remembered also, that we just decided it was.
It was just, yeah,
Vast.
it was either too big or too small, but it was never quite the right size for,
And that we
do.
would have listed the artists who had displayed, who had shows at the gallery for the last
yeah.
gazillion years.
Who lived here in Albany?
No,
No, because those artists don't have to live here.
They don't have to live in
They
the,
had displayed in Albany.
I see.
they
Yeah.
have to apply for shows, and then the arts committee chooses who's going to be there. And but if they had to live in Albany, we would not have a lot of shows, because there are different kinds of things that we can handle and can't.
So looking at this list, maybe we can go through and I can color code or go through which ones make sense to move to the next period. And I started kind of outlining some of the ones, but maybe we take this list and go through one by one of what we're going to move to the 2019-2021.
Will be all the stuff that's in progress, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
all of that.
yeah.
With one other little tiny thing. Can we go to the Rich and City accomplishments thing? We're still focusing somewhat on the Albany Greenway art projects. We haven't really figured out the creek art. I'd like to keep it open to use that money, either to have the creek art be the way it is, the way we want it, or to get something else there. So I'd like that to be moved into the next work plan also. That's not like, that's not done.
It will depend on when those funds disappear, the matching funds.
Is there a time when those funds disappear, the WW funds?
It's sometime in early 2020.
Right,
All right, so that does give us, if we really,
if we push,
if we push, and we would have to push.
yeah, we'd have to get
a
it
new
together.
project going, but
Well, let's push
think
for
we
it because
should,
it's money that we have.
it's money we
Let's do
have
it.
and we should use it.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
I'm not understanding.
Okay,
so
so
you're
I
wanting to
wanna-
open up a new creek project?
Or,
We want this project to happen.
Right. Okay.
That's the
so we
bottom
want
line.
it to be on the plan.
Right.
Right,
Right.
So we just want to say creek art
Mm-hmm.
on the plan.
Mm-hmm.
so that if something
How it's
happens
written
with this
would be a work.
particular project, we could possibly move into something else
Sure.
that was,
Okay.
and get it done.
Okay.
Well, having it in that format wouldn't prevent us from doing that, though, necessarily, because those are public art projects that have already been decided or funded, and I would assume that in our new PAPP, we have to allow space for new projects, right? Because we haven't
You're
even
right.
Right.
thought about what we can do with any, I don't even know how much money is in the fund right now. But one of the things that we determine as a committee is whether or not it's time to take some of that money and do a call for,
A new project.
pick a location, find an artist, what
Right.
do we want there? So we have to add something new into that anyway, and
Okay.
if the creek art money just comes back to us, then that can be used either for creek art or something else
Anything.
at our discretion.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the balance goes, at this point, I can't remember the last quote I gave you, but with a new finance director, she was able to find a little extra money. So she's amazing. So when you include the PAPP projects that are pending, so that's the community projects, creek art, and sculpture loan, those three, when you calculate that we paid $25,000 for the loop, and that was in the PAPP, and also that the Public Works Center is $30,000 that went into the fund. There's a balance of $71,614.
That is more.
So that is more than we
You
thought.
bet it
I mean,
is.
after all those
Alrighty.
payments are made.
Yes.
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 Great.
If for any reason the creek art did not go through, obviously that would adjust 7,500. That would go back into the fund, so it would be closer to 80,000.
There you go.
Um,
Like that,
yeah.
like that.
So,
Yeah.
so a portion of that, we're thinking would possibly go into community projects if we wanted to, up to, was
In the
it?
next PAPP?
Yeah, up to 14%.
Mm-hmm, that could be, yeah, that could be rolled over as well, and that
Have-
same process could be
And then we
done.
have, say, $50,000 or $55,000 left over, which isn't enough to get anything very
Nothing.
big, but
Mm-hmm.
it would be up to us to decide what we want to do with
Do
it.
with it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to make allocations for the work plan? Like, do we have to say, dedicate this, or we can keep it just as a general pot?
Yeah.
No, but we should have, on the work plan, we should definitely have a line that says new public art consideration, or however we want.
So 2 programs that were developed in the last work plan that are technically in progress, but a lot of work from the committee and staff were the sculpture loan and the community projects. So those, I think, the first year is always the hardest year, but I think some great, projects or art to be really proud of for the committee that's going up in Albany. So if those are 2 that you want to continue, I think the sculpture loan program, probably we would adjust that amount. Although maybe not, we'd have to really think about the locations and how much realistically the pads would be.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to focus more on Solano Avenue, then it just goes into concrete and you're not paying for a pad. These are all discussions we've had. So moving forward, that was just something I wanted to throw out there too. But so right there, if you say, let's say 6,000 for the sculpture loan and 14 for the community projects, then that's at $20,000 already.
We don't have to decide that tonight, right?
No, but just keep thinking about it, because as of next meeting, we're gonna start identifying numbers and really, I think I put here too, at the bottom, I looked, also that each of the last 2 years, we met 9 times out of 11. So it puts it into perspective that we only see each other 9 times. But that's not to say that work can't be done, and it isn't done when
When we're not meeting.
between meetings. Yeah.
So, Ava, does the PAPP has to follow the master plan, right? Those projects have to come out of the master plan. Is that right? Like priority targets, or
We have to take it into consideration.
Yeah, it's considered on the work plan is more the process, or I think you're thinking of also the locations that are identified. Yeah. So when you come down to the community project, it really describes that no community project can be put on, I think it's the top 12 priority sites that were determined in the master plan. So it's really kind of a guide for the arts committee for the projects, whereas really the PAPP is just the budget.
so is there scope or a way, if we wanted to, let's say, have more live music on Solano, slot live music on Solano into the PAPP and not on the general work
I think
plan?
that's the thing, is that on our work plan, I think what we have to do is put an item where discuss and revise the Art in Public Places ordinance,
Okay.
the master plan,
Okay.
and it's one other
Strategic
piece of that, isn't it?
Just those 2, I think. The ordinance and the master plan.
It's the master plan, and the public art, there's the ordinance itself, there's the public art, or the Art in Public Places fund language or description. and
Which is
then
the
there's-
ordinance, I think.
Then there's
That's
the
how they
master
have it.
plan itself, right? So
That should be in the next work plan.
yeah.
To
so
research
Our
and-
work plan should involve revising those. And I don't think we have to be specifically how we intend to revise them, but the idea, I think, that we've all had is that it's too restrictive. And we wanna open it up to
Because
a different idea of what public art is.
Do you want to put something on here? I have research and discuss
Research, discuss,
and revise and
it's more
possibly.
like an
Update.
update and revise the, public arts ordinance, the master plan,
So
and the, Art and Public Places Fund.
But I think the, yeah,
Is that part of it?
I think the ordinances determines how the fund is
Oh, okay.
spent.
Then
Yeah,
it's
so I
just
think it's those 2, right?
I believe it's those two
Have
things
to be
then,
used
yeah.
as in lieu funds, so we can only use them for permanent visual art.
And I think several of us at least have given notice to the council that
Okay,
we
that's-
wanted to
that's
do
the
that.
nub of the things that We don't want it to be just visual arts.
Understood.
Right, and the research will really come with checking with the city attorney of if that's
Yeah, I
possible,
think-
which.
Yeah, that's
Which we
a
don't
lot
know.
of work to do that.
I also want to put in here too that before we finalize the work plan too, I'd like to ask that, and this was actually Jen's suggestion, is to put someone's name or two people's name by each of these items so that there's really someone who's passionate about this who really wants to take
Yeah.
the reins, or two
Okay.
people. So
Do
we
that.
can do that at the next meeting
You
too.
can put my name on the sculpture loan program, because
Okay.
I'm going so deep.
Okay, you're doing great. You are pushing that ball up that hill.
Pushing that ball. That hill.
Yeah, did that answer your question, Brandon?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, that was great. Thank you, Peter and Brandon.
Yeah.
That was-
And then, Brandon, I like how you said the Economic Development Committee, maybe I'll copy this here, and left it kind of open.
Yeah, I would simplify that to, art and economic development project or something of that nature.
But you also, I'll have to go back through the tapes, but you also said something about just,
We could have as a goal to draft a specific proposal, as a starting point, so we have something concrete to discuss and then send to council or the Economic Development Committee.
Where is your draft at right now?
It's very rough, but I don't know the exact procedures we could discuss it next meeting or send it out before the meeting.
I don't even know. I mean, it depends on what the goals are. I mean, if there are specific projects, the way I kind of heard the last meeting is the economic development representative came and said, you guys should do murals and you guys should do sculptures. And we said, we are. I said, oh, great. There was a lot that they didn't know. We also discussed that if they have suggestions, coming to one of the arts committee meetings just to say, here are 5 ideas that we want to pitch. It would have been a great idea if they had come before this whole process, but maybe they could come in March. I don't know. It would be something, but they didn't. There wasn't anything. There was a lot that the arts committee was already doing too. So I think if there was a project on Solano or San Pablo that the arts committee would run with, that's when we would go through the normal process of taking it to council. But I'm not sure that before that we would have to go to council.
I think
Unless
this
it-
might be beyond the next work plan, but to really make something like that work in the long term, you need I think a mechanism and a process, not specific one-off proposals or requests. And so what I have in mind is to develop a draft process or proposal mechanism. So if I'm a Solano business owner and I want to do art XYZ or whatever, there's an easy way for me to know that I can do it, what funding's available, what permits I need to do, what resources there are, et cetera. And maybe that already exists, but I don't know. But that, in the long run, that's what would make it more vibrant and I think actually more feasible for all involved. Right? It's having a mechanism like that.
What would you?
And we don't have any funding is the problem. I think the business owners might say,
Good for us. Yeah.
city wants me to do more art, great.
Who's paying for it?
Right.
Right.
What's in it for me? So they would need to be convinced of the benefits, and also if the city could subsidize it minimally or somehow facilitate that, it could be positive. But there's no money for that right now is one of the issues.
Well, there is the community projects process, so that's always an option that they could in November come and apply for funds and get an artist and do that. So the arts committee has already identified that. But other than that, as far as collaborating with the economic development committee, it doesn't have to necessarily be a project too. It can just be somehow working with Abrams Cleghorn or the other Art Thou and working with them. So I think it can be both. Maybe some concrete projects that do end up in our PAPP, and that we have funds for, but it can also be more collaboration or supporting art that's already been done. They're doing an art, doesn't Abrams Cleghorn do an art walk, and they do their own little event too. So those are all things that directly I see falling under economic development on Solano Avenue. So
Yeah, and when we each have our people. Like I'm always talking to the head of Blue Bear, and we actually met with the mayor to try to identify performing arts spaces on Solano Avenue, and we continue to be in conversation about it. so that if something should come up, we'd at least, we're in the conversation, we know what we're doing, we know what we're trying to do.
And remember, the ordinance says right now that the money cannot be spent on anything other than public art, but it doesn't mean you can't, like you're doing exactly, supporting the arts in Albany and looking for spaces and
Right.
and promoting and so, you know, all of those other action words that don't require funding
Right,
too.
exactly.
So yeah, so that's not on the table, but
Tea with the artist.
drinking tea, yes, take them out for coffee. So anyway, so I'll listen to the tapes too, because I thought you said it very well of just keeping this item open, as opposed to here where it was very specific.
Yeah, I think what we all were talking about is just use art and not the specific, subcategories or whatever, but promote art and economic development on Solano or the commercial corridors.
Okay. And again, I think the wording of this probably came from the council strategic plan, but I'll jot down what you said too and kind of look at that. So, promote art and economic development. Is that what you said?
Sure.
Did I get that right?
Sure.
Okay. So
I
going back.
guess that's part of what I see as the Arts Committee's role also is that, so this is not a staff item for you. It's not a staff item. It's, you know what I mean? It's really our job to be in those collaborative conversational things.
That's something when I started to draft what I was working on. I don't think the businesses or the artists lack for ideas or initiatives,
Right.
but if the city wants to encourage economic development through arts and cultural matters, etc., the city's role, in my opinion, and our role is to facilitate that, not necessarily direct it. And so you could have some small subsidies, you could be a resource, informally for artists. We know these people, these are some ideas, this is best practice. You could facilitate permitting, reduce permitting costs, stuff like that. That's what I think in the long term would be a viable, feasible, sustainable way to promote art and culture development in Solano and San Pablo, if that's a goal.
Mm-hmm. And based on your draft too, I think the council would love that idea. I'm going to take that off the record. But I think that would be a great example of something to put under this category too, because the idea is there and it would be a tool,
Yeah.
So do you have how to say that? Like, what would you call what would you call it? And if not, you can email it to me maybe.
I think we want to draft a proposal mechanism of some sort, but maybe we could just define it next time, or I'll think about it.
Think about it, and if you have it, and I'd love to add it to the list if it was, because we at some point they were talking about even just like a handout, a brochure or something like that. So, yeah, an informational.
I
How
think
to.
Poland haiku has to come out of the PAPP.
Do I have it there? Yes, I do.
But it can go into that other community fund, can't it, Peter?
Because that community is,
No, I mean
Well-
the other, outside of the Arts Committee fund.
Mm-hmm. And it's on the agenda. We'll chat about that and maybe
We'll
make
talk
a
about
motion. Yeah. Yeah, we keep bouncing back and forth too, but moving Creek Art over, it sounds like there's yeah. Creek Art.
and then, a line for new projects.
Mm-hmm. And new project I'll put in here as a space holder, but as far as the deadline goes, pretty much by next meeting we need to identify what that is going to be.
Well, couldn't it be that we've decided that we're gonna we're gonna take $40,000 and do a call for artists and have a new public art without having to, we don't know what it's gonna be, but we wanna work on it. I mean, how could we possibly,
I think there would have to be, I mean, just in looking back at some of the projects for the last two, that there would have to be something specific, whether it was Solano Avenue projects and it could go under economic development, or, because all of these are pretty
gonna
specific.
have anything by next month?
It's gonna
Don't-
nail it down.
don't-
We're
don't these
trying not to
existing
nail it
ones-
down.
Don't the existing ones come from the master plan, and that's why they're so specific? I
No,
thought no.
those are all from a couple years ago.
Which in any case, I mean,
Well, it's
I don't think-
community projects is vague. I mean, we don't know what that is. I don't see why it can't be the same.
But there was an amount.
Project is gonna cost.
That's true. It says community projects or set aside funds not to exceed $14,000.
We could say
But there was an
projects not to exceed $40,000, $45,000.
I will definitely ask. I was also there were also other ideas too that I kind of wrote down. I think I put them here. Yeah. You can't read those, but these are just some of from listening and looking at some of the agendas that had come up. Whether these are items that people want to move to the next work plan, or the utility boxes I saw at one point. I think it was on. I'm not remembering where I saw that one, but if that was someone wanted to research doing art on utility boxes, that's a pretty minimal cost to that. The BART columns, I don't know if that's something that would make sense to set aside funds on, or if it's not even close.
I was going to say I'd be happy to have it on the work plan, but I don't think we're close to having
A dollar amount.
funds. I would be happy to maybe draft a very rough request for proposals and just see what's realistic, and then from there we could maybe talk about dollar amounts. But
Well, is it
I don't know dollar amounts right now. Is the
Right.
problem.
but has BART given the approval yet?
When I've talked to them, they've been very enthusiastic and said, yeah, we're open to ideas. Here's the minimum criteria that we're looking for, which I think I shared in a previous document. I reached out to an artist at UC Berkeley who does the type of data art that I've been thinking of, and that I haven't got in touch with him, but I could talk to artists also with everyone's help here and see what might be feasible, what the costs are, and put together a very rough, here's the situation. But I don't know dollar figures right now, what something realistic like that would cost or be feasible or desirable.
Right. Well, and that, from looking backwards, I think there's just a guesswork that goes into it. So like the sculpture loan program before that, none of the research went into it, but we knew that we were going to give each artist $1,000 stipend, and there was going to be a plaque, and then we were going to do a pad, but we didn't know really what those costs or where the locations were and everything. And what we're finding is that dollar amount may be low. So I think you just kind of do the best you can too, but doing some research too would be.
Yeah, my point, I guess, would be to have it on the work plan, just not under the PAPP, where it sounds like we're looking to have a specific dollar range. Does that make sense?
And if you don't have it on the PAPP, then in the next 2 years there wouldn't be any money spent for art, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, and hopefully that's something that perhaps we could address when we revise or work on revising or updating the documents. I mean, otherwise, if it just doesn't make sense to throw something in that bucket if it has to have a dollar figure right now. Does that make sense? Because it's it'd be like saying sculpture loan program $100,000 or without having any real referential figure. So I would love to have it be in the PAPP so that theoretically it could be funded. But if it has to have a dollar amount on it, we don't have any idea. At least I don't have any idea of what a realistic range is.
Right. And I guess if it was a priority of the committee, knowing that there's a set amount of money to be spent, and, Peter threw out $40,000, we could just say $40,000 for BART column art or BART art.
I just think that's too hypothetical
Premature.
at this moment, at least for me. I don't know what everyone else feels like.
And that's fine. And so if it was on the work plan, how would you word it?
I would. I think it'd be useful, in 2 years to draft requests for proposals. I mean, always keeping in mind that it's a draft and not, up for discussion, change, etc. But that would allow us to get specific information and be realistic about what's possible and when, etc.
Is that, I don't know, this is obviously just a draft, but is that kind of something you had in mind? Okay. I don't know why this isn't. We obviously will move the foyer gallery exhibits over. Poet laureate, I think we had continuing, and we have that on the agenda today of making a motion if we continue that contract. Art on the bulb.
There's no money in that. That's just another community project that we are in conversation with people. We're not running it. We're
Right.
just,
I don't-
Right. So supporting and consulting
Yeah.
with the people
But
who
I don't
are.
think it's on our
yeah.
agenda, our to-do.
Yeah, it's not something
It's
that
not-
is an arts committee
We're
project.
always available for consultation.
But it's not on our work
It doesn't need to be
list,
on the
it's
work
not our-
plan.
I don't think
No.
it needs to be on the
Okay.
work.
No.
One
Okay.
one related item to that might be also just knowing the work that Susan does and how she tries to do it, is not applying for grants necessarily, but having a mechanism so that we or the city can easily sign off on grant applications when they're.
But that's not our thing.
But as the arts committee, it could be beneficial in the long run to make sure that the city, if Jen, Susan, whoever it is, comes to the city and says, hey, if you guys can be the co-signer or co-sponsor, whatever it is, on this grant, we could potentially get XYZ dollars. If I understood previous conversations, the city's presently not
Yeah, we're not
set up to do that.
We're not
We
set
should
up to do it either.
But what we could try to create is a mechanism or plan or something so that if Group Y comes to the city, it's either a relatively easy process, yay or nay.
Yeah, because right now it's like a 2-year process, and then that grant is gone. Yeah, so if we could forward think like that.
Just to institutionalize.
That's just part of our mission anyway. I mean, does it have to be on a work plan since it's really
Well, we haven't done
baked into our mission statement that if someone comes to us and asks for support, that we can support them?
Yes, but we can't. So can we sign off on grants? Can we say to the city?
No idea.
Yeah.
That we have to talk to an attorney about.
Right.
I don't believe a
We can
committee
sign-
can,
I
but they
don't-
can make
yeah,
a
they can.
recommendation, is my understanding. But is this similar to the economic development, like kind of promote, like creating a mechanism or creating a how-to of how?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
they're related, not the same.
Not the same, but just like
And just-
making it so that it's available to the public. So if they, and maybe even on the website.
Or just it's so that it's easy for the city if someone comes with a compelling idea. Some of these grants want a local constituent, right? It's public group plus the city agree to do X. My understanding is that the city right now is not well set up to kind of participate or engage in that. So
We can't really support the artist.
yeah, and I guess what I want to say to everyone's point, I think it's a great idea. I would like to help with BART and the economic development initiatives. I wouldn't, I think, have time really to contribute to that. So if none of us can contribute to it, it doesn't need to be on the work plan. But I think maybe in the city, in the back of the city's mind, in the back of our mind, having that mechanism could be useful in the long run.
Well, and as an advisory body, this is exactly what they do. They research and present their findings and make a suggestion too.
So is there a way to make that suggestion to the city and have us not run it?
Have us not run.
Have us not be the body that has to develop the language that says, city, you need to be ready to sign off on, you need to develop a mechanism so artists can use the city as what did you call them, the
I don't know.
co-signer, but
Yeah,
yeah,
sponsor of some sort.
sponsors.
I see it as the role of a committee to advise the council on that and do the research. I don't know that they have the time to, and this is directly under the
Okay.
arts purview. But I could look into that too.
Let
But
me, I actually
But
can
if-
ask some people who work for other cities whether that's something that they do.
I can put this in maybe italics. And people can think about it, and at the next meeting, if no one is passionate about it, then we do that for the
Right,
21,
good call.
23 work plan.
The city be happy about that.
I can't either.
So I guess so okay. Registry, Film Fest will move over, and the increase visibility and awareness, I think, are great. So what I can do is ask the committee in the next 2 weeks, let's say, just because I need to draft all this up. So I don't know, February 25th maybe, is if you do think of other ideas, especially the new members too. I know you guys are bursting at the seams with all sorts of ideas, to email me and I can add them. And what we'll do is just put them all down on our piece of paper and we'll look at them next meeting and really try to create a working document for the work plan of what's coming up.
Great.
Does that
Thank
sound
you.
good? So by February 25th, email me your ideas. One thing we'll have to include in the PAPP is the floating the walls too.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. We can talk about that next.
Okay, yes.
Are we good with 6.2, 6-2?
6-3.
Now can we move on? We move on to the poet laureate, Peter?
Oh, okay. So Becca Black's term is ending, and she is willing to extend it for another 2 years, and I would recommend that we do that. She's been pretty active. She's been involved talking with the library about restarting up their poetry reading program that they had. The library's got a different idea about doing it, but Becca, I think, is going to be in charge of that. We met with her. Even I met with her recently and went over her obligations and getting poetry to us, and so she's sort of on track to do all the stuff that's required of her, the contract. So I would like to someone make a motion to extend her contract for another 2 years.
I move that we extend Rebecca Black's contract for another 2 years as poet laureate.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
In terms of her stipend, she does not get any money from the city, but we have applied in the past to the Albany Community Foundation. They've let it be known that they're happy to receive another application. Whether give us the same amount of money as before or not, I don't know. But who's applying? Is she applying, or we're
No, you would apply for this one and she would do haiku.
I'm going to apply.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will put in that application.
And 6-3B was to make another motion to approve Member Goodman applying for an annual stipend from the Albany community. So if someone wants to make,
Okay, I'll move that we approve Member Goodman's application for an annual stipend from the Albany Community Foundation. Any second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, that, yeah, okay.
great. I should just mention too, I try my best to word the recommendation so that you can make a motion and just adjust the wording there. I don't always, and sometimes the discussion changes too, but just a tip for the future. But
Thank you. Okay, the Albany Film Fest, Peter.
Right. Okay. So the Film Fest, you all got your new program. This is a preliminary program, not the one that's going to be handed out at the actual screening. But As you can see, it's,
Quite a bit.
it's a whole week of Albany Film Fest, March 16 to 24, starting with a kids matinee and ending with the screenings on Sunday at the Albany Twin. Got a lot of sponsors. We're gonna have a raffle. It's gonna be a big gala on the Saturday preceding the film festival. It's gonna be at Mechanics Bank. Everyone on the committee will get an invitation from the Film Fest. And you're welcome to come. Food, drink, and filmmakers.
Fabulous.
You'll be there, right? Yeah. So it's on its way, and tell all your friends, and please give out these programs
Yeah.
to anyone you meet. It's really important we get good attendance.
Awesome.
Looks great.
Thank you. Fall into haiku.
That's me again. So as I mentioned in a previous discussion, the city attorney doesn't think that the Art and Public Places Fund can be used any longer for paying the expenses involved in creating it's mostly just printing the signs and doing the design production work. Comes to our estimate for 2019 is it's going to be about $850. And those are paid to third parties, printers and production people. So absent the Albany and Public Places Fund, we have to decide whether to apply to the Albany Community Foundation again, for grant, or to try and fundraise, or to suspend the program for a year on the assumption that we're going to revise the ordinance such that the money can be used for something like Fall into Haiku, or be really optimistic that we're going to actually be able to revise the language of the ordinance in time, which I'd say forget that, because we'd really have to know by early summer, because the call for submissions goes out in August, and we have to do planning before that, and I don't think we're going to get far enough into the ordinance planning. I think where we're at is we'd like Becca, in other words, to apply to the Community Foundation to see if they can possibly fund the $850 that we need. I think they'll let us know fairly quickly. If they don't, then we have to decide whether we want to solicit contributions from merchants or lovers of poetry, or, like I say, suspend it for a year. But we can't do it without the money.
No, certainly not. I think it's a great idea to have Rebecca apply for it to the community fund. I'd hate to see us not do it next year because it's such a charming, kind of lovely thing. So why don't we start with there and go from
Do you want to?
So let's make a motion. I move to approve that Rebecca Black applies for a grant of $850 from the Albany Community Foundation for the 2019 Fall into Haiku program. See, beautifully written, Eva. Somebody second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Abstain? Okay, so we passed that. I'll talk to you about that later, Peter. I had some ideas as well.
Okay.
Okay, so the sculpture loan program, that's me. Oh, so Karen and I, thank you, Karen, walked the sites with Mark Hurley, who's the head of Public Works, and he approved all of them. He thinks you can do all of them. I'm gonna write up everything that I found out, because we sort of approached this sort of backwards as a group, because we didn't know how to do it. Now we do. So we're just developing these sites to be of use over time for temporary sculptures. And that's gonna happen. It's gonna happen pretty soon. And matter of fact, one site needs no work at all from Public Works, and so that artist, that's the Meet Me at the Corner, the big blocks of concrete with the faces, that will happen in the next couple weeks, I'm sure.
Yes.
One thing that I really need, and I have to know how to do if there's any procedure for doing this, is that we talked about landscaping around them, and I realized this is so easy that I could just get volunteers to landscape around them. Just to put, he was mentioning, we were talking about these concrete blocks that sit on the ground. I said we should put bark around them, just beautiful bark. And he said, yes, and you should get a crew to do that. And I realized that's a really easy thing for us to do. I think that, is there anything that I need to know about calling for volunteers to spend a half an hour to landscape around sculpture when it goes in?
And that's after it's gone in?
Yes, after it's gone in.
And Mark said, okay.
Mark said do it, because it just seemed the fastest, easiest thing to do.
Mm-hmm. So spread kind of mulch.
Yeah, just put
around
mulch
the
around the
front and back,
sculptures.
so they don't have to mow around
No mowing.
there. Weeds.
We don't even, because mulch is a weed suppressant.
Mm-hmm.
And since it's all temporary sculpture, we could redo it every 3 months, or we could redo it once a year,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a new sculpture. So I just need to know if there's anything I need to do through the city about that. I forgot to ask Mark that. He didn't seem to think there was. He didn't mention that there was. Anyway, the cool part about it is, it's happening.
Fabulous.
And Karen and I were talking earlier too that the next step we'll have to work on is that artist contract, and she said you had some samples perhaps
Yes,
too.
I have those.
So if you
I have those artist contracts.
okay, if you can send those to
I'll
me.
deal with that. I'll show them to you. Oh, do we have to write them up for our city?
Yeah, the city attorney will have to make it in legal jargon and everything too. So,
Okay, so let me get that.
but definitely if you have a draft or
I do.
one that you really like,
I
yeah,
do.
we'll start from there.
Great, awesome, thank you.
So all three sculptures are going in on a concrete pad?
No, the Meet Me at the Corner doesn't need a concrete pad. Just they're big blocks of concrete, they're
Right.
just gonna sit on the ground.
Okay,
We're developing that circle at Dartmouth,
Right.
the circle, we're gonna put a big pad in there, but not a circular pad, a square pad. And then we're putting a smaller pad up by where we decided that the water column will go, in the Rotary Club thing.
Fabulous.
and those pads are reusable then?
They're reusable, yeah.
And all the sculptures are gonna be braced in some way?
Yeah, they're all
Even
gonna
the,
be, they all have installation instructions, and the artist is responsible for installation. The city is gonna contract out the pad making.
right.
And the sculptures are up for 2 years?
Yes,
That's what I thought I
to be
remembered.
extended if we want.
If we want.
Right,
Fabulous.
So,
Well
phew.
done.
nice.
This is going to be such a wonderful addition, not only
It is gonna be
to Albany,
really-
but the Albany Greenway, and
Yeah.
people just are really excited about it.
So in the future, I just wanna make a recommendation about this, is that if you see an amazing site, that you think this is the way we should have done it, was we should have identified sites, and then gone out and asked artists for work. You know, like look for a site first, develop the site first, then find the artist. Rather than, oh, we have this art, let's figure out where to put it.
Well, we're going to have sites available.
We're gonna have sites.
So
We have
that's a
10,
start.
yeah. It's a start. It is a
It's
start.
a start indeed.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Well, and it might be, as we're planning the work plan, it might be a good idea to say where the next 2 or 3 are going to go to really kind of think in your mind, like, okay, our next focus is going to be Solano Avenue
Yes.
or San Pablo, and then you don't have to identify the spots, but then there's a real direction, and again, that can be tied to the economic development, and you also have to remember that they're on a 2-year cycle, so you want to think about how they're
All on two.
expiring,
Yeah.
how you want to space them out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Every 6 months do you want to be doing this, or so it's
every
just
year.
every year,
That would
once
be
a
about-
year, right? Yeah.
So do you want to put that in the work plan now? Because I do think we could put language in that says our eyes should be on Solano Avenue.
Yeah. If I'll add it right now.
Thank you.
And again, if those, as we've kind of learned, if it's on concrete already, it's going to be
It's
a
awesome.
much
It's really so
quicker
much easier.
procedure.
So easy.
We learned a lot in this first year.
Yeah, you really do. Okay, can we move on?
Oh, yes.
Community Center foyer?
Okay, so we had an opening in January. Julia James has 28 very exquisite little etchings of Mount Tam. And if you haven't seen the show yet, it is a charmer. So please go in and take a look. It was a lovely opening, very low key, and I thought it was lovely. Our next gallery opening is April
13th?
13th.
13th. Okay.
April 13th. And so that will be Lisa Levine, who does photographs.
Actually, it'll have to be the 14th, because the 13th is a Saturday.
Okay, Peter, you got that wrong. It's the 14th.
Okay.
Postcard says the 13th.
That's it?
And
No,
the things, the
the
reception is the 14th.
the reception is the 14th, right.
Right.
Okay,
Right,
the
it
open,
opens on
okay,
Saturday.
Okay.
The show opens on Saturday.
Reception.
And reception is on the 14th. And so she does very large photographs. They should be very exciting. I will unfortunately be gone during that period. Jenny is going to run the opening and help with the setup, because I will be in New York. My son is getting married. So we do what we must. And so that's great. So that's our next show. And we will, we will go as planned. And Jenny has done this before when I have missed them, so she knows the drill, and I'll have it all set up so she can just walk right through it. Our next show after that is in July, and Betsy Kendall, who is a painter. So that's the calendars so far. For the new members, we run 4 shows a year. We ask for submissions at the be in by the end of August, and in September, our September meeting, we choose the shows for the following year. So we work a year in advance. So we will, and starting in January is when our new round of shows begin. So if you know of people who are interested, by all means, let them know. And because we're always looking for more artists. It's we want to be local, but we're flexible. So I think that's it, information-wise. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Can we get phone numbers for everybody, or email addresses for everybody? New people, can you put that out for all of us?
Both.
Okay, moving along. We have to elect some officers.
Good luck.
Brandon, will you be the chair? I'll
Not
nominate you.
immediately, I can't. Maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future. Cheryl?
Not a chance.
She's on the fence. She's on the fence.
Never.
Did you turn it down, Brandon?
He turned it
down.
He turned
Offer
it down.
him the crown 3 times.
So, Peter, do you want to talk a little bit about the chair's responsibilities, since you were the chair for quite a while?
I had a break, Peter, so it's time to
You should be
step up
fresh.
again.
No. Well, the chair, what does the chair do? Well,
It's
the
not that
chair runs
much.
the meeting.
Yeah.
Gotta know the Robert's Rules of Order, like really, really well.
Yeah, because that's how we
And,
roll.
And consults with the staff liaison for planning the agenda, for putting up new agenda items, for dealing with little bits of business that come up between the meeting and between one meeting and the next. Sometimes the city has some concerns or some questions and needs more information or clarification on certain things that we decided, and so the chair, along with the staff, might meet with someone from the city or just provide some additional information. Well, I mean, one of the things that happened recently was, there was that controversy about the Albany Loop. There were some neighbors who were upset, and so the chair, Jen, and why did I get dragged into that?
I don't know.
You were convenient.
You,
It's convenient. So the chair with the staff had to meet with the neighbors and see what, explore what the issue was and hear what their comments were and try and decide what the next step could possibly be. And whether to involve the rest of the committee or turn it over to the city or whatever. So anything that comes up like that. It's not a tremendous amount of time. But before every meeting, yeah, maybe another hour or so between one meeting and the next. It's not a big time commitment. You do feel a sense of responsibility. People wave at you on the street and
Tip their
Chairman.
tip their hat.
Wow.
you
Wow.
get carried in a sedan
Kiss your
chair,
ring.
one end of the salon to the other.
Quite.
Anyway, it's fun. It's not a bad job, and
It's only a year
you do get a little
commitment.
more plugged in, and you kind of see how the sausage is made, which is not always pleasant, but it's good. And when no one jumps in to volunteer the chair, often out of a sense of guilt and responsibility.
Don't say
it's a
that piece.
voluntary thing. But a good chair will find someone to
There you go. Delegate.
designate.
Yeah, designate.
And not get stuck.
And every
in it.
once in a while, there's an item that they go to council to just be there if there's extra questions.
That's right. Make presentations. I have to represent the arts committee to the city council. Like this work plan coming up, whoever's the chair is gonna have to go and present it and field those really difficult questions.
And I don't even know, yeah, I haven't gone through the process if it's a presentation or if you're there if they have questions too. But
And we're down a member, yes? So whose member are we down?
Jen,
Oh, we're down the
the
school.
Board of
Board of
Education. Yeah.
she didn't get a thing.
Yeah. So if anyone knows anyone on the board or connected to the board, it would be, we just haven't heard, I know they're busy, they've got a lot of bigger things going on, but they have appointed other people who have applied. So Jen never applied, so they didn't reappoint her, but she seemed to have had discussions where she felt like they wanted to go a different direction, so she didn't apply. But someone would need to apply, and then the board could appoint someone.
Someone would need to apply to the city or.
The same link that you guys all went through, though it's 4 questions, something like that.
So the board is not gonna
Talmudic.
just pick someone out of the blue?
I haven't heard, and neither has the city clerk.
Well,
We've
anyway,
reached out several times, so at this point, the seat just stays vacant.
getting back to our elections, Jenny, why don't you step in and be chair? Because
I'm the
you
vice
run
chair
these
right now?
meetings.
I run these, I ran the
Good,
fastest meeting we ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it wasn't
We've
tonight.
never forgotten.
It wasn't tonight. I can never be here at 7, so I will be the chairman if somebody else will be the vice chairman and start the meetings on time. I teach right up until 7, and then I jump in my car and come on over. So,
Oh,
you want to do a swap?
you could do that, right?
I can do vice chair if it involves starting the meetings on.
Yeah, would you do
There we
that?
go.
That'd be
Hey.
great. Thank you so much.
Well done.
We do, technically, we have to vote,
Oh,
so.
okay.
Okay.
Who,
I'm running a rough campaign.
yeah,
So, can we do one
What
at a
can I
time,
offer
or
you?
what's that?
just chair and then vice chair? or
Yeah, we
do
could
the
vote on, well, any other nominations, you can nominate yourself as well, so any of the newbies wanna jump into chair or vice chair, everyone's gonna be an expert on the Brown Act after February 25th.
I will never be an expert. Can I borrow your Robert's Rule of Order?
So if there's,
I would like to nominate Jenny for chair and Brandon for vice chair then.
okay, so we'll vote if
Second.
you wanna, well, actually, everyone will vote, so they're
okay.
all in
All in
favor.
favor of me being the chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Good luck.
You can oppose yourself.
No. Okay, so that passes. All in favor of Brandon being the vice chair?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Congratulations, you
bad, right?
two.
Yes,
There you go.
congratulations.
awesome.
And Peter, way to get out of that. That was impressive. Yeah, another year. But really, thank you to you both and
Yeah, no problem.
being a part of it.
Okay, so future agenda items. Can we look at this, please?
Can't go yet.
Request for future agenda items. I feel like something came up during this meeting, and I forget what it was.
Let's quickly say what this piece is. I don't know if you want to speak to that, or I can.
So we have an agenda based on what we've discussed today. We're going to always approve what we said today. We're going to going over it, but we have an agenda. We're going to work on the work plan. We're going to work on the PAPP. We're gonna always check in. Is there anything that's on today's agenda that we know we don't need to check in for, it can be off, for example? We usually do a check-in with all these little committees, all these small projects.
And I just want to add too that future agenda items, it doesn't necessarily mean nothing at the meetings can be discussed if it's not on an agenda.
Right,
And
that's right.
the reasoning behind that is if we were secretly to discuss something that the public didn't know about, it'd be a violation of the Brown Act. So everything that we discuss in meetings has to be on the agenda. So this is an opportunity for committee members to suggest items that they want on future agenda items. It doesn't, or agendas. It doesn't necessarily mean it will be on the next one. That's really up to the chair to decide. Like the next meeting is gonna be another long meeting, so if there's any new items on here, then we may push them back to April, but still, it's good to just get them on here.
So, like Brendan's thing about the art commercial corridors program, that would be a part of our work plan discussion, right? We don't have to pull it out as a separate item.
Yeah, at this point, it will look a lot like this agenda, right?
Yeah.
And these are, creek art,
Yeah, it's gonna look
Public
a
art.
lot like today's.
we won't have the Poet Laureate, Film Fest. We won't need Fall into Haiku.
Yeah, we will, because maybe Becca will have applied
Yeah,
for a
we may
grant.
have-
Yeah, we may have an update, you're right.
Want an update. We'll have an
I'll
update
have
on
an
sculpture
update.
loan.
Mm-hmm.
Probably won't need an update on the foyer,
Probably not.
because nothing's gonna happen between now and then.
Okay.
We won't need to elect officers.
Well, I can just announce a reminder about the opening, but that's fine. I can do it in the announcements.
Okay. So I'll put all of those down for this. Any new future items that you wanna talk about? Brandon, did you wanna do the economic what you proposed, what you sent to Peter and I? Do you wanna
Yeah,
discuss that?
I would, it's gonna be part of the work plan discussion, I imagine.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's
that's
on
what
the
Peter
website.
said.
But the document I sent can also be forwarded or shared as appropriate.
Okay. I'll send it to the to the committee.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn.
Hear a second?
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Okay, good night, everybody.